G'day! My name's RJ, and welcome to Killer Canuck, a recurring segment here on RUE MORGUE TV. Based on a true story, we've all seen those words or some variation of them before a film. Back before the days of the internet, they used to carry a lot of weight, mostly because you couldn't pull out your phone and fact-check them while you were watching. Well, while the antics of Leatherface, Mick Taylor, and the Warrens weren't depicted exactly as they happened, residents of a certain house near CHEESMAN Park would caution you not to ignore the warning so easily. Let's take a look at 1980's The Changeling. In the late 1970s, producer Joel B. Michaels received an audio cassette in the mail from a pianist named Russell Hunter. It recounted in the first person Hunter's experience living at a mansion on the corner of 13th and Williams Street in Denver, Colorado, just outside of CHEESMAN Park. Michaels said that he was so riveted by the story that he listened to the entire 3-hour runtime in one sitting.
The history of CHEESMAN Park is long and interesting. If you like ghost stories, I definitely recommend doing a dive of your own. The abridged version says that the park was built over Prospect Hill Cemetery. The city told the loved ones of those buried there that the bodies needed to be moved before the construction began on the park or they would be stuck there for good. While many people came and relocated their dearly departed, when construction concluded in 1898, there were reportedly over 2,000 residents still in the ground. In 1968, Russell Hunter signed a 1-year lease to live in the Henry Treat Rogers mansion for only $200 a month, which is a hell of a deal, haunted or not. Almost immediately, he reported being plagued by the omnipotent sound of a bouncing ball. He hired an architect to help locate the sound of the ball, and together the pair found a hidden staircase that led up to a secret room in the attic. Up there, he found a diary of a young boy who used to live in the house and began to unravel a $70 million inheritance conspiracy that would become the basis for the film, which was shot under the working title, The House on CHEESMAN Park. Michaels and producing partner Garth Drabinsky, who co-founded Cineplex Theaters with Nat Taylor, hired a pair of writers to help bring Hunter's audio cassette to life, telling them to keep the script as close to the original as possible. Michaels wanted something akin to The Turning of the Screw or The Haunting. They hired Diana Maddox and William Gray. Gray would eventually pen Prom Night and Humongous, and Maddox had worked with Michaels on a previous film, 1971's The Peace Killers. This version of the script was sent to director Peter Medak based on his work on the film The Ruling Class from 1972. Medak agreed to do the film because after he read the script, he found himself frozen with fear. The film opens with a shot of Cypress Hill, BC, upstate New York, where composer John Russell, his wife Joanna, and his daughter Kathy are walking their wood-paneled wagon through the snow. Back in my day, when we went on vacation, we pushed the family car uphill both ways. Russell is played by George C. Scott, known to genre fans for his turns in Dr. Strangelove and The Exorcist III.
Scott carried with him the reputation of being a serious actor, and also of being difficult to work with, which made Joel Michaels and Peter Medak nervous. However, they were relieved to have no issues with the actor over the entirety of the roughly 40-day shoot.
At the top of the hill, Russell heads over to a payphone, presumably to call for a tow truck. Across the street, he watches helplessly as a dump truck swerves to avoid an oncoming vehicle, crashing into the back of their car, sending it forward and crushing his wife and daughter. Russell is grief-stricken, and the memories of his family in his New York apartment become too much to bear. So he packs up, and with the help of a few friends, heads across the country to Seattle. Through his friend's connection to the Seattle Historical Preservation Society, Russell meets with Claire Norman, played by Scott's real-life wife at the time, Trish Vanderveer, to view his new house. He's found a place that's dark and it's rotted. It's a cool, sweet kind of place where the coppers won't spot it. Scott and Vanderveer worked on several films prior to The Changeling, including The Last Run in '71 and The Day of the Dolphin from '73. They worked together well, with no reported drama on the set.
The outside of Russell's house was an incredible facade built on the front of a mansion in Vancouver, BC. Production designer Trevor Williams was a master of his craft, and with the exception of only a few rooms, constructed the interior of the house to be one continuous set, made entirely of wild walls at the former Panorama Studios in Vancouver.
To complete his new life, Russell takes up a job teaching music. George C. Scott could actually play a little bit of the piano and learned this little ditty to help us through the transition to the orchestra. This concert hall scene was shot at the Orpheum Theatre in Vancouver, which you might recognize from its appearances on the small screen in shows like Arrow, The X-Files, and the Battlestar Galactica reboot. After the music, Russell and Norman are treated to a speech from Senator Carmichael, played by Hollywood legend Melvyn Douglas. Douglas reportedly spent a large portion of his days on set regaling the cast and crew with stories, and was just a joy to work with. In the following days, Russell is subjected to all sorts of suspicious goings-on while trying to record music. Doors open on their own, seemingly dead piano keys ring out unprompted, and every morning at the same time, he is woken up by the sound of a metallic banging that echoes through the entire house. He calls in one of the groundskeepers to check on the pipes in the furnace, but he finds nothing out of the ordinary. After class one night, Russell pursues a dripping sound to an upstairs bathroom. He turns off the faucet before hallucinating a young boy drowning in the tub. The next morning, he heads to the Historical Preservation Society to dig up some dirt on his new residence's old residence. The Society's main building is played by the Hotel Europe in Vancouver. With Norman's help, he finds that many of the documents pertaining to the mansion are missing, and when the secretary gets Russell alone, she tells him that the house doesn't want anybody there.
It doesn't want people.
After a window in the attic explodes and rains shards of glass down on him one morning, Russell takes it upon himself to explore the room. He roots through one of the closets on the top floor and finds a secret hidden room behind some shelves. He smashes his way in with a hammer and finds a secret room up in the attic, just like in Russell Hunter's original story. In the cobweb-infested attic, which was a separate set, he finds an old dusty wheelchair, some file folders, and a music box that still works. But the real kicker is that the music box plays the exact same tune that Russell has been composing downstairs on the piano.
Music is a big part of the film, with concert piano playing throughout. It was composed by Kenny WANNBERG, who spent the majority of his career working with film legend John Williams, and his incomparable resume includes credits on the first 6 Star Wars films, the Indiana Jones trilogy, Memoirs of a Geisha, Jurassic Park, and Home Alone. He was brought in after working with producer Joel B. Michaels on The Peacekillers.
Russell shows Norman the attic, and the pair begin the husband and wife detective portion of the film. They head back to the Historical Society and learn that a man named Bernard used to live there. With this name, they pore over newspaper articles from the turn of the millennium and find that his daughter was killed in a coal cart accident. They head to the cemetery where she is buried for some closure. This scene was shot at the Lakeview Cemetery in Seattle, one of the few scenes that were actually shot outside of Canada. That night he returns home and is greeted by a red ball with a white stripe bouncing down the main stairs, exactly like the one his daughter used to play with.
This ball made an appearance in Russell Hunter's recounting of the story as well. He read in the files that the family who kept their child in the attic left him only a red rubber ball to play with. Only in his telling, when he opened the door to the attic, the ball bounced down the stairs towards him and reportedly disappeared when it reached the bottom.
When you ask people if they've ever seen the Changeling, they'll remember either the ball or the wheelchair. John picks up the ball and drives it out to the Granville Bridge in Vancouver. He drops it over the edge into the water and heads home. Production actually got this shot from a platform they weren't supposed to have built under the bridge, while the locations manager frantically kept the police occupied. Russell returns to the house, but as soon as he walks in the front door, the ball, now glistening from the water under the bridge, bounces down the main staircase to meet him. Now fully convinced of supernatural forces at play, Russell brings in a medium to perform a seance on the house. This mirrors Russell Hunter's experience, who even went so far as to hire an exorcist. What follows is one of the grandfathers of seance scenes. Diana Maddox and William Gray did months of research into dealing with the supernatural before writing this seance scene. The automatic writing was added by them from their research and has been lifted on countless occasions, most notably in The Others from 2001. Russell sets up an audio recording device and captures the entire event. The medium communicates with the spirit of a young boy named Joseph, who died in the house and wants to communicate with John. While listening to the seance after the fact,
Did you die in this house? How did you die?
Joseph shows John a flashback to him being drowned in the bathtub upstairs, and his banging on the side of the tub resonates with the sound that has been waking John like clockwork. And we also learn that the young boy's name is Joseph Carmichael. After this revelation, we are given an of-the-time heady exposition dump, wherein Russell delivers his off-screen research onto Claire Norman over lunch. He explains that Senator Carmichael, Melvin Douglas's character, is the illegitimate son of Richard Carmichael. Richard Carmichael's biological son Joseph was born sickly and likely wouldn't survive until he was of the age he would need to be to claim his, Richard's father's, Joseph's grandfather's, inheritance. This explains the wheelchair in the attic. If he had passed before he was 21, then the inheritance would go entirely to charity. So, Richard drowned his only son in secret, and then claimed that he had shipped him off to a hospital in Switzerland, at which time he adopted a new son from Sacred Heart Orphanage and proclaimed that when he returned healthy after years away, that the Swiss treatment had been a success. Are you still with me? By definition, this new child, who would grow up to be Melvin Douglas's character, is called a changeling, which is where the title of the movie comes from.
This is where the movie and audio cassette differentiate. Obviously these characters weren't real and were made up for the film, but this changeling inheritance conspiracy was found in the files in Hunter's attic. The difference is that while living there, Hunter never disclosed this information to anybody.
John Russell pores over some maps of properties previously owned by the Carmichaels, one of which used to have a well. the perfect place to dispose of a body. Newer maps show a house now built over the land where the well had been, so Russell and Norman head to this new house to investigate. They coerce the current occupant to tear up the floorboards to find the well. The homeowner is played by Saskatchewan theatre actor Frances Hyland, who would appear in Happy Birthday to Me the following year. She was also married to Frogs director George McGowan for nearly 10 years. Russell not only finds the well under the house, but also digs up Joseph Carmichael's body, including his christening medal with his name on it. Realizing that his theory may be true, Russell calls the police, but keeps the medallion to himself. The next day, Russell tries to converse with the senator as he boards a plane, flailing the christening medal around and claiming that he is not the true son of Richard Carmichael. Thinking he's being blackmailed, Senator Carmichael sends a detective named DeWitt he has in his pocket to threaten Russell. DeWitt is played by Toronto actor John Colicos, who I know as having played Baltar on the original run of Battlestar Galactica. This counteroffensive is short-lived, as John receives a phone call from Norman shortly after the detective leaves to inform him that she has just passed the officer's car upside down in the middle of the road, with DeWitt still in the driver's seat, dead. This is shown in a great reveal from Montreal cinematographer John Coquillon.
Coquillon is known mostly for his work with director Sam Peckinpah in the 1970s, having shot Straw Dogs, Pat Barrett and Billy the Kid, and Cross of Iron. The camera feels like it's in constant motion and brings life to Trevor Williams' brilliant set. Director Peter Medak convinced Coquillon to use a specialty 17mm zoom lens for the majority of the shoot, one that was developed by Stanley Kubrick.
Upon hearing about his detective's demise, Senator Carmichael agrees to meet with Russell. John explains to him that his adoptive father murdered his biological son to keep the inheritance money in the family. Having known his father as the kind and generous man who left him everything and helped him attain his status as senator, Carmichael aggressively rejects Russell's claims. Having done all he can, John leaves Joseph Carmichael's christening medallion on a painting of Richard Carmichael and returns home. Meanwhile, Miss Norman heads to the house and follows John's voice up to the attic. This is the other scene that people remember from this film. She steps into the secret room and is startled by the wheelchair abruptly turning to face her. Unpiloted, the wheelchair chases Claire down the stairs and around the second floor before launching itself down the main stairwell. Claire clambers her way up the stairs terrified before she is tended to by Russell, who has just returned home.
Co-producer Garth Drabinsky battled polio as a child and very nearly had to spend his entire life in a wheelchair, so this scene carried some extra weight for him. The chair itself was remote controlled and driven by the special effects team.
Angry that John didn't get the response it had wanted, the house begins to collapse in on itself. Two giant airplane fans blow high-intensity winds at George C. Scott as he tries to ascend to the attic in slow motion. He makes it to the second floor, but the vengeful spirit blows him through the railing down to the floor below, before lighting the stairs on fire and dropping the chandelier. Back at the senator's home, he compares the medallion that Russell left him to his own that he wears around his neck. The spirit of Joseph transports the senator much like it did with John to the flashback of his murder. This incredible imagery of Melvyn Douglas ascending the burning staircase could only be captured once, so director Peter Medak was standing by at the top of the stairs in case the aging actor needed some support upon reaching the top. The stairs collapse and the senator witnesses the act itself, his adoptive father murdering his own sick son. This proves to be too much for him to bear, and the senator suffers a fatal heart attack in his office. John corrals Claire and the two escape from the burning building together. The mansion the crew had built the facade in front of had already been slated for demolition, so the crew was able to literally burn the building to the ground, with the help of the Vancouver Fire Department, of course. Peter Medak gets his trademark ambulance shot in as it passes the burning mansion, and the film ends with a shot of the rubble the following day, as Joseph's music box opens and plays us out to the end credits. The Changeling was shot in 1979, mostly in Vancouver for the tax credit. It had a budget of nearly $8 million, an eighth of which went to actor George C. Scott, and another $500,000 went to the construction of the set. So the crew got very good at stretching their dollar. It was released to widespread success in Canada and international markets, but because of some politics involving MGM, the newer company that released it in the States bungled its delivery. Director Peter Medak was offered more horror projects after the success of the film, but turned them all down because he felt the scripts were never up to par with that of The Changeling.
So whatever happened to Russell Hunter? Well, after his one-year lease was up, he opted not to renew and the house was demolished. An apartment complex called Summer House was built on the same lot at 1313 William Street, and some of the folks who live there have claimed that they can sometimes hear piano playing from the unoccupied rooms, or the sound of a rubber ball bouncing down the stairs. Until next time, I've been RJ, this has been Killer Canuck, and thanks for watching. Hey folks, RJ here. Thanks for watching this episode of Killer Canuck. Just want to give a huge thanks to the folks at RUE MORGUE for hosting this series on their channel. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RealKillerCanuck. If you like the tune playing in the background, be sure to check out Prodigy on SoundCloud and over at noiserecords.com. There'll be a link in the description below. Let me know if there's a Canadian horror film you think I should cover. Until next time.